So you're looking pretty nice there today. I love the salmon top. Your hair is looking very
Thank you.
fluffy. Is there a special occasion?
I have a date tonight.
What?
Yeah,
You heard it here first, you guys, right here on Date Smarter Sexier. Our wonderful host has a date.
I do.
May I ask who it's with?
Um, just one of the many that I've met on a dating app.
Okay.
Um, I don't
Is
want
this a
to.
repeat date or is this like a first initial date?
It's a first date. We
Ooh,
have not even chatted on the app, so I really don't know anything about this person, which is kind of cool. I like it like
that's
that.
even better because it's like you're
Yeah,
going on a blind date almost.
kind of feels like it.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like sometimes when you're like talking to people on these dating apps, like you spend more time like sending messages back and forth and actually planning to meet? And before you know it, you're just like, why am I even talking to this person? So, yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my big things with dating apps is I will specifically say that I don't want to get caught up in a conversation via text. I just want to meet in person. I need to know. I don't need, it's not like I'm looking for the chemistry. It's
Hmm.
fine if we have compatibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I need to know what your voice sounds like. So that way I'm not hearing it in the tone I've created for you. I've created this entire persona and then I meet you and I'm
Hmm.
disappointed because
Yeah.
shit, this isn't right. This isn't
Yeah.
what I had in my head,
Yeah. I
even
forgot
though you could be cool.
who mentioned this recently. Someone was saying to me in a private conversation that, they sent a message to someone and the person interpreted it in their own way. And you're basically saying it again, where it's like, I think texting actually, in a way, has ruined, not ruined, but made dating a little bit more challenging because if you're in a bad mood and someone sends a text, let's say they're like a jokester or like someone with a big sense of humor, you may interpret that text as, either they're being aloof or they're being an asshole or they're just being non-empathetic. Whereas they're just, being fun and trying to lighten up the mood. So I feel like texting and not speaking the words that we're saying really like leaves everything open to interpretation, which I think cancels out a lot of second dates, honestly.
It does, because by the time you get to that first date, you
Hmm.
have created something that is not accurate.
Yeah.
Instead, don't try reading between the lines. So try to read between the emojis to see like,
Yeah.
is this sarcastic? Is this funny? Is this
Hmm.
dry? Are they bitchy? Are they fun? Like you're just creating it. So I
I
appreciate
agree.
that this guy did not do that.
Yeah. I like that too. It was when my husband and I are a little different. We were talking on this app called Scruff for maybe about
Mm.
3 to 4 months before we actually met. And the only reason we met was because one day I was in New York City working and he worked in New York City. And for some reason, I guess on my lunch break or something, I said, hey, we messaged each other because we said we were both online and we were near each other. I said, hey, we're both in the city. Let's meet. And I said, sure, whatever. I don't care. I'm there in my work clothes on our first day in New York City. So, and we were there for 4 hours. So there's that. But yeah, it was something
Wow.
about just saying, let's meet up, no more conversation, like taking that uh, active step to set
Mhm.
something up. Because I feel like some people are just like, okay, now send me a picture of your genitals. Okay, what is your mom like? Okay, where do you like to go for vacation? Okay, what do you like to watch? And that's like everything you could be discussing on a date, right?
Right. Or they're trying to see, do you check the basic boxes? Let me just ask that right off the bat. And I understand that these guys don't know that I'm a dating coach.
Can you
Um,
hold on 1 second? This sounds wild, but can you just hold on 1 second? I'll tell you why in
mhm.
a second. Okay, so thank you for just like pausing there for a second. We're actually getting close to having our guest on, but I had to have us pause because yesterday I went on a callback for a film that's shooting like 5 days in September. And well, he says I'm a top contender for the part. So I guess basically kind of sort of I have the part.
That's
So
amazing.
this is so fucking cool. Oh my God, this is so fucking
Yay.
cool. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, so oh my God, I feel like I've been totally sidetracked in our entire conversation.
That's all right. This is exciting. This is kind of what just like what happens in life, right? Like
Hmm.
this is part of it. This is part of life. This is part of the job that you and I kind of are
Yeah.
constantly fighting for.
Yeah, it's like we're always trying to put our name out there to attract more people to our brands and to our message. And
Mhm.
I honestly feel I'm so happy that we've united in this show because I get excited about some of the topics we talk about, honestly. Like today, we're talking about intuition and love. Like I feel like for me, like in this situation, I followed my intuition. In the situation with my husband, where we were meeting, where I could have said no when he sent me that
Mhm.
message saying, "Hey, let's meet up for a quick drink or something," which turned into a 4 hour dinner. But nonetheless, I could have said no, like I usually do for a lot of guys when I used to like do online dating. And I think a lot of single people still do it. You know, they're hesitant. They're like, I don't know yet. We haven't really talked as much as I thought we could. So I like that we're talking about intuition because I think that's the one thing a lot of us kind of like ignore in
Right.
life, like red flags, which we've talked about.
Absolutely. In fact, I just did a video that I'm going to put up this weekend on Facebook about the adventure dates and how there are so many guys out there. I mean, maybe women too, but from what I've seen, it's mostly men that really push for them. A first date, adventure date, it's too much.
Hmm.
It's too much on both sides.
Hmm.
Like, instead of trying to create this huge experience on a first date, it's too much as far as expectations. It's too much time together. What
And when you say
if
adventure dates, what do you mean? Like obstacle course, hiking, which I've been complaining about some of your previous dates. Like, what do you like? What do you mean by like adventure dates?
so like, I mean, an entire plan. So, for example, I'll give you an example that a friend of mine wanted to do for a girl. She ended up not going on the date with him, and he was so bummed. She really liked donuts. Gorgeous
Hmm.
girl, loves donuts. Actually, did an ad locally for donuts. Um, and so he thought, how cool would this be? I'm going to plan it out. We're going to go to X, Y, and Z donut shops. And he had this like picnic thing set up, and they were going to drive to each one. And he had like this adventure set up so that at each one they
Oh.
would rate them and they would talk about them.
Hmm.
And so that it felt like an experience versus
Okay.
just a date. But this is like a minimum 4 hour experience.
Yeah, that's a lot. I
You
mean,
cannot expect someone to spend that kind of time with you on a first date. You
if
don't
there's
know
a
that you're going to like them.
exactly, I was gonna say if there's a spark, yeah. You know what? On that note, we need like a little buffer to start our show. So let's take a second. You can introduce because I'm pretty sure Wanda's gonna have to wait just a moment before she can come in. But let's wait a second, and you could introduce us. Whatever.
So our guest today is Wanda Gibbons, and she is also a coach. She Her coaching is a little different from mine, where I coach singles. She coaches relationships, so she coaches
Hmm.
couples. And so I thought, this is really cool because this isn't something that I do, and I don't really know a whole lot about as far as coaching a set
Hmm.
um, of people. I do individual work, so we thought we'd bring her on to talk to us today a little bit about her experience and coaching couples. So
Hmm.
we are going to welcome Wanda. Hello, Wanda. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Hello. Did I read correctly that this is like your debut on a podcast?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Woo! Clap.
Congratulations. I'm glad you're like joining us for a show to like, sit and have a little chat about relationships and dating and all that fun stuff that we're all obsessed with on a daily basis, basically.
Yeah,
Yes.
remember us when you become rich and famous.
I will.
Now, can you tell us more about your practice and what you do with relationships?
Yes. So I like to work with the couples because it's important to know both sides of the story. And so I have a gift of being able to see both sides of the story. So as I listen to each person, then I can find a way to come to a mutual kind of agreement, I guess you might say, and then help them both see from the other person's perspective, because we all have our own perspective. And I think it's really important to be able to see why the other person might be saying or doing what they're doing. So working with couples, and I have a program for that as well. And yeah, so.
Have you always felt like a gift for this? Like since you were young, or is this something that appeared as you became maybe in your 20s? Like what was the process to coming towards it or coming into it or whatever?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So basically I had no idea I would end up being a relationship coach or a coach even. And through all my experiences, it's just, I had a lot of relationship experiences that, you know, a lot of hardships and a lot of things I had to work through myself and, you know, learn how to resolve issues. And it just kind of, I had clients that I was doing energy work on, and I found that I started coaching them as I was doing the energy work. And I just started asking them questions, and then they were getting more clarity with it. And, you know, it would go into these areas that they had never thought of before, and it resolved things for them. So then I was like, okay, so maybe there's something there. And then, you know, it just kind of flowed that way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you find that a lot of these couples just kind of fell out of sync with each other?
Yes, a lot of times that's what's happened. You know, there's not the communication. Communication is number one, and a lot of people don't know how to communicate.
That's so
or they think they do, but it's not effective communication.
Yeah.
And it's really key.
Oh, I love those ones who are like, I communicate. No, you talk. You don't communicate. There's such a big difference.
Or the ones that don't listen, where it's like you're saying stuff, but they're not like, it's like it's stopping right here. It's like going anywhere further than that. And it's just your words are hitting the wall and falling on the floor, basically.
Yes.
When it comes to the couples seeking you out, besides you already doing energy work on them and it naturally progressing into that kind of counseling or help, what has been some tipping points that you would say that have been common for couples to say, you know what, I think we might need to seek some objective counseling?
Yes. Tipping points are, you know, like the lack of communication again, right? And just not feeling loved. They know they're loved, but they don't feel loved. There's a big difference. And that is really crucial. So I always suggest the 5 love languages. So there's a quiz that I have that people can take. I have my clients take that. And then they find out what their love language is, because especially if you're not on the same love language, it's going to be more difficult to speak their language, because it's going to be foreign, right? It'd be like learning a foreign language.
Yeah.
So that's crucial. I think that falls in line with the communication as well.
The love languages is so key, because even just this couple days ago, I was out with some friends having dinner, and one of them turns to me and is like, you have to love my dog. That's my love language. I'm like, that's not a love language. Like, seriously, girl, like, find out what the love languages are, do your test. I already know what she is just by being around her. But at the same time, she like throws out these like random ass things where she's like, that's my love language. I'm like, that's not a love language.
No.
Do you think some people are not in tune with what their love, just like you're saying, Andrea, that's the problem that's happening?
Yeah, definitely. Most people don't even know about it, actually. There's people that if they have physical touch and the other person doesn't like physical touch, well, there's going to be challenges there, right?
That's actually a thing. Like there's people that don't like, okay. Because I know some people that recoil from it. I mean, they love their partners, but when I see them kiss their partners in public, they're like, oh no, don't do that. It's like they almost get shy or embarrassed, but their partner takes it as like, oh, I don't think she likes me. I don't think she thinks I'm sexy or something. Like maybe she just doesn't like public displays of affection. I mean, that's possible. So that's actually, and you can still genuinely love the person.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. There's words of affirmation, right? Some people just need the compliments, like, oh, you look beautiful today. Simple little things, right? But it's very important to them. Quality time. So some people are, quality time is important to them. So if they have a spouse that is always working, there's going to be conflict there because they're not feeling love because they're not having that quality time.
So slight tangent here, back to the words of affirmation, because I don't know, this just kind of triggered in my head. And I thought, you know what, maybe we should spend a minute or two talking about this, because I've seen it with friends, I've seen it with clients, and I've experienced it myself. Words of affirmation aren't always the same for everyone. Here's an example. I cannot stand when a guy messages me, hey, pretty. Ew. And I'm sorry, but I don't like being called just pretty. There's a lot of other words out there that you can call me, but like pretty just feels like a level just above cute, which is what you call a puppy or a baby.
But, I mean, is that bad though? I mean, I can see the innocence in it where the guy thinks he's saying something sweet.
Well, that's my question then, is like when you're working with couples, do you ever find that becomes an issue, that they have words of affirmation, but they're not the right words?
Yes, there is that as well. Yes.
Wow.
Sometimes because it's like I said, it's like a different language, right? And so there's, in each of the 5 love languages, there's parts of it that can stem off into other areas as well. So it's a very personal thing, right? So yes, there, and you know what, maybe your reaction to the pretty stems from something else. Maybe, and I don't know the history, but maybe there was someone in your past that was very sarcastic about it and said, hey, pretty. And so that bugs you, right? So there's lots of things, like triggers are.
I was just going to say that it seems like these things are all like triggers from like past negative experiences, whereas now it could be positive because of the negative linking that you have with it in your mind. But there's certain things that my husband does that to him are romantic, but to me, it triggers things from my past. So when it comes up, I'm always like, don't do that. But to him, it's like, oh, I'm just trying to be like sweet and romantic. And I'm just like, well, I don't know. I didn't get those feelings when that happened. So it's like,
yes. And triggers are a big thing in relationships. And that's something that I work with couples on, is getting rid of those triggers, because they are always, they are something that has to be dealt with, and you have to resolve that. And it's about looking into your past and where that's coming from. And it's really, it's so freeing when you get rid of the triggers.
I would love to. Yeah.
It's
seriously,
like awesome.
Me too.
Yeah.
I used to have so many triggers, and I learned how to resolve them. And I'm telling you, like, you do the work and you're like, oh, I don't know, I still have this trigger. And then you, one day you're just like, oh my God, I don't have the trigger anymore. This is awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It's so freeing. It's a very important piece of a relationship.
I would imagine so, because it's almost like when people have a phobia or like a social phobia. And it's like, they feel they get anxiety, they want to stay home, and usually they do stay home, but then, you talk to them and like, oh, but I wish I had friends. I wish I had a big social circle. But then you're like, well, you can't have a social circle if you stay at home, silly. So it's like, I guess those phobias that some of us have in our lives, unless we like tackle them face on and see why they're there, we really can have a freeing life. Like for me, this sounds trivial, but every time I go to Disneyland, there is one ride there was two, but now there's one that I refuse to get on because of my fear of heights. And last time I got on one of them, and it wasn't as scary. So I feel like for me, in order for me to tackle these certain triggers that I have to face it. And I think that in relationships, just like for me, there are certain things that I have not faced yet. And I would love to like be able to clear up those triggers because I can see how they affect my relationship now in like negative ways. You mentioned that it's been freeing for you. So my question is, did you experience a lot of, share if you're open to it, but did you experience a lot of negative feelings that, or experiences that led you to having the career that you have now, that gave you all the experience that you have, that you're able to objectively see, oh, that's that, let me help you?
Yes. Actually, I was married twice. I'm single now. And I used to get lots of triggers. A lot of the triggers were kind of stemmed from resentment. And the resentment came from me not being who I was, and I was being somebody that everyone else wanted. I wasn't being true to me. I was trying to make them happy because I thought it would make me happy. So in that process of trying to be someone else, I had triggers. Everything, it got to the point where everything was triggering me. And now that I've discovered who I am, and I don't do things out of obligation or anything like that anymore. I actually don't have the triggers. So my last former husband, we're actually we're really good now.
That's good.
And I used to get so many triggers with him, but I don't get that anymore. So
did the triggers stem from the first marriage?
Actually, the triggers stem from childhood things.
Oh, wow.
Actually.
I feel like most triggers do.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. And then they just kind of, if you don't deal with them, then what happens in a relationship is each relationship you bring in, it's going to come in because it's showing you that that's what needs to heal. Right.
Yeah.
So it's our emotional wounds that need to heal. And that's why relationships are great, because they give us that opportunity to look at ourselves and say, okay, well, this needs healing. And then, it's a process, but it's well worth it.
I can imagine that those triggers, those behaviors, and those emotions probably just stockpile if you don't deal with them, and they just pile and pile and pile. And for someone who is in their, say, mid to late 30s, even, who's never been married and just been single and dating and dating and dating and dating, even if they've only had maybe a couple long-term 1-2 year relationships, that's going to create a lot of triggers, because there's a lot of disappointment that's just going to stockpile after a while. And then they bring that into a marriage. Oof, yeah. I don't want your job.
Yeah.
I like them when they're still single.
Well, you're both on each side of the spectrum when it comes to the relationship process. You're where it's more established, and you're at the beginning when people are trying to figure out who they are. And I like how you said you felt in the certain relationships that you couldn't be yourself. And that is all Andrea and I are trying to teach in this show, is just be yourself, be your authentic self. And you can find good love, the great passionate love that you desire, because then you're open and receptive to it, I guess you would say. I mean, I don't know, I'm wording it like it's a question, but another question I have about relationships is, when you're counseling these people and they do come to a healthy point in their relationship, is there ever room for negative emotions? Because, some people deal with ambition, but some people have aspirational desires, or, they're working on a skill that may bring frustration, or they may be going through a health thing. So that could be clouding up their thoughts. And that inevitably will bring up negative thoughts and mood swings and whatnot. Is there room for that in a relationship? And can that relationship sustain it if it's healthy?
Yes. First of all, life is full of all kinds of crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can't be positive 100% of the time. It's impossible as humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a way of expressing when you have, negative emotions happening. There's a way to express that. You never, project it onto your partner, because that's a big no-no, because nobody deserves any kind of verbal or physical abuse. It's okay to be angry. We have to feel our emotions. It's important that we feel them, but we have to express them in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. So, and that's where that communication comes in too. When you build that bond between the two of you, you can actually sit down and talk about it. And so the great thing is so say you're having a bad day, well, your partner comes in and say, hey, let me listen to you.
Yeah.
Tell me all about it. And it's about validating their emotions. And that's the thing too, is even in arguments, is if you don't necessarily agree with what they're doing, but you can see that they're really upset about it, it's validating the emotion. It's not validating what they're doing, but validating the emotion. That is so powerful in a relationship. I have seen it even with my daughter. It has turned our relationship right around. We went from not talking to now we have a great relationship.
Yeah.
I would love to hear you deep dive a little bit further into that, because I hear that so often and I see it all over like my Facebook group. It comes up constantly. It's like nobody listens, whatever. But the fact that people are having a hard day and they just want someone to listen. Can you talk a little bit more to that, what that looks like in a healthy relationship?
Sure. Yeah. So see if I can think of an example. If they're having just a hard day at work. So, and here's the thing too, is men and women are a little different. So women like to talk about it. If they're having a bad day, they want to talk about it. They have to get it off their chest. Men generally don't, they're not so much like that. I'm not saying they're all like that, but so for instance, if you're just wanting to rant about the person at work was really ticking you off, and you just need to get it off your chest, then your partner can come to you and they can say, you know what, it sounds like you had a really frustrating day, and I'm sorry you had such a bad day today. Is there anything I can do to help you?
Oh,
what do you need from me? So it's really about learning how to do that validating. It takes practice. It took me practice to learn it, but it makes such a huge difference. And you'll find that when you're validating people's emotions, that all of a sudden you're going to feel their mood is just going to go, oh, okay, you're listening to me. You care about me, right?
Yeah.
Because we all want to be heard.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would imagine that is better versus what I think most people, not most people, I think many people do, where it's like you start to help them with their problems, try to solve their problems. As soon as they start to complain, say, well, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do that? Or why don't you look at it this way? Or why don't you just stop feeling that way? And then that person just stop listening to them. And then the whole time, I'm guilty of it. There have been times where my sister would call me upset about something. And as soon as she says what it is, she's upset. Well, I'm like, well, you should do it this way, and yada, yada, yada. And then she's silent. And then now, she didn't get to share what is actually on her mind and what is in her heart, regardless of the details that are involved. She's just trying to vent and share, get the emotions out. And I think in relationships, that has actually been the root of some of my of my arguments with my husband, the few that we've had. It's not what he did that I'm upset about. It's the fact that he's not listening to me when I'm trying to share what I'm feeling. He's still trying to mansplain. He's still trying to fix my problems instead of just shutting up. And I do see that there's an immense amount of value in just being silent. And sometimes that's what it takes to have a healthy relationship. So I 110% agree with you on that. That's for sure. Do you ever find that some relationships work with mismatched energy. You know how some people may be like, I've seen some relationships where it's like, it's the nerd with
Hottie.
the hottie, or it's the or it's the jock with the homebody, or it's the one that's super flamboyant and sexual with the introvert. What's up with those recipes? How do they work, and what's making them work?
Okay, yeah, so very interesting, because basically what's happening is you're taking one person who's, for instance, flamboyant, and the other one is very like, I just want to hide, right?
Yeah.
So you're taking the two, so you attract, you're attracted to the person that has what you'd like more of, right? So it's like the other person is there to teach you basically how to be a little more of that. And you're trying to teach them to maybe calm it down a little bit. So then you meet in the middle, and then you have the balance. So
okay.
yeah, it can work, but I find like even opposites who attract, right? It's more challenging for sure, because generally if you aren't into being able to see the other person's perspective on things, if you're not able to kind of discern that, then that's when the conflict happens, and then there's too much friction in the relationship. So it's about really opening up and kind of learning what that person's perspective is, how they see life and how they do things, right?
Yeah.
So
Tony
those are
Robbins has a really great quote that I see all over the place, and I love it. In fact, I've integrated it into my own business, where he talks about how people are attracted to people who are like themselves or like the way they would like to be. So we are attracted to the way we would want to be. So like you're saying, if opposites are too opposite, then it's too far outside their reach. But if they are just outside that, spectrum of, oh, I kind of wish I was a little bit more like that, then it's a little bit closer to be able to grasp onto it and say like, okay, I can understand. I want to be a little bit more extroverted. But if it is way out there, then it's like, I'm attracted to it. It's cool. I'm intrigued by it, but I can't grasp it.
Yeah.
Or so it has to kind of be in reach, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Because really extremes, you'd have to do a lot of work to kind of make that work. It's not impossible. Nothing's impossible if both people are on board and want to do the work. So, yeah.
Do you feel like a lot of things like personal factors, like religious beliefs and political beliefs, do those separate some couples, or can, like, I would find that would be an extreme difference. I know couples that are like, well, one is one and one is the other, and it works somehow. I don't know. But is that one area that you're able to work through those differences and still find, is it just being open about things? Is that really what it's all about?
Yeah, you can do that. It really boils down to what you're willing to put up with.
Okay.
Because both my husbands were atheists. I'm spiritual. It was not a good mix, because I am who I am. And so as I learned who I was just talking about, there's a higher power. I believe in a higher power. I don't care if people are atheists, but I have to have a partner that's spiritual. Yeah. I cannot do that. I'm not making that same mistake again, because of the way I see life, the way I look at things, the way I realize that we can have anything we want if we know the universal laws. But if I'm with somebody that doesn't believe in a higher power, and they believe that they're just here and, whatever hand is handed to them, that's what life is, then it's not going to work. So it really depends on a personal preference. It can work if you're not, if that's not as much of your life as it is mine. For me, it's very much part of my life.
It's what we value, right? It's those top values that we hold really close to us. And for, like you said, for some people, they value maybe their religion or spiritual beliefs, but not to the same level, not the same degree. And so it doesn't play as big of a role in their lives as say maybe something else does, like accountability, having someone who's constantly there for you. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, so it's a matter of determining how important is this value to me, and if it's really that high on my list, should I be with someone who doesn't hold it to the same level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking on that, when that does happen, because you do end up in relationships where you do care about the relationship, even if like you match somehow, but then there's a point where it's not for all relationships, but for some where it starts to, decline a little. Is there any tips or ideas you have to reintroduce a spark to reignite that power that brought the two energies together?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things you can do. Like you can make a list and like think back of when you first met and
Mm-hmm.
what was it that you really loved about each other, and then see like, oh, why is that not existent in the relationship now? Can it exist again? The love language, I'm telling you, will create sparks. I have seen people, I had a couple that I coached and she was ready to leave him, and he couldn't see things the way she was seeing them. So I literally within 4 sessions their relationship had just totally turned around and things were amazing
Wow.
because they learned the love languages. They started speaking each other's love language, and then I helped him with perceptions of different things, and her as well. They both had different things that needed a little tweaking, I say.
Mm-hmm.
So
So is it like there's just a little level of empathy people are missing sometimes when they're having these issues? Because it seems like that. I mean, if you're saying that we have to learn our love languages and make sure that our partners learn our love languages, it feels like not only is there work that needs to be done, but oh my God, I forgot where I was going with that. Andrea, please take it over.
I want to backtrack to when she was talking about like kind of going back into the beginning of the relationship and exploring what originally sparked the interest. I swear to God, Katie, were you taking notes? You were writing that shit down.
Yeah, I was.
I love it.
The part where you were like, what do you love about each other? And because I remember like sometimes things happen in my relationship where things start to lull a little, especially when we're busy and we're working and we're preoccupied. So I always like, we keep a board in our kitchen of all of our adventures. We keep it pinned up. We keep like pictures of past dates as magnets on our refrigerator. We do a lot of these things to remind us of all the stuff that we have done. So, and when we have those lulls, we always like reintroduce dates and stuff like that. And I feel like that's what keeps us going, because the one thing that we both have in common when it comes to intuition and all of that is that we both have a sense of a desire for adventure and getting out there. So I could be in a bad mood and he could be somewhere else and he says, hey, let's go to the zoo. And at first I could be cranky about it, but after a while, because of my sense of love for animals and being outdoors, it brings us back together and our energies match again. And I feel like the spark reignites again. And then we go out on a dinner date after that. So I feel like in our relationships, we always have to work at it because it can go away. And for people who think that people just have it easy in relationships, that's not the case. I mean, if you match with each other, that's great. That takes away some of the work. But I love what you're saying about getting rid of triggers and really learning your love language, because I feel like so many people just overlook that and only look at the superficial things like, oh, he has a great job, or oh, she has this or that, or he has this or that, these superficial things. And I love that this whole show you've been talking about getting rid of your triggers, because I feel like I have a lot to get rid of myself.
We all do.
Oh,
Seriously, I'm like rambling on, but seriously, I it has me really thinking about some triggers that I need to get rid of myself.
well, I want to go back to the date night thing because that's really, really important. It's so easy, and I did it myself. When you start having kids, you forget about your partner. You're just
Mhm.
consumed with your child because babies require a lot of work,
And
and
energy.
yeah, and energy. And then you're tired, and you just
Mhm.
don't feel like you have time. But it's so, so important to step away from that and go
Mhm.
out on a date night with your partner, because
Yeah.
it keeps that fire burning, right?
Mm.
And it's just so important. And if both people aren't on board with that, it makes it really hard when it's just one-sided.
Yeah.
But even if you can't do it once a week, do it once a month, but get a babysitter,
Hmm.
do whatever you can, but just the two of you go out and do
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking, because I would imagine if your relationship becomes a threesome and it's always a threesome and it's never just the two of you without that third voice, even if it is your lovely baby, they're talking, you can never have those intimate moments where you're just looking into each other's eyes, or you're just touching each other's hands, or just, I don't know, just sitting in silence because you're
Yeah.
exhausted. I
Yes. And
mean, that
it's,
could be
Yeah.
romantic. Yeah.
it can actually, it can, it's about not having the distractions anymore.
Yeah.
Shut the cell phone off, get the
Mhm.
computer off, shut the TV off, have that conversation with each
Mhm.
other. If it's only just about how your day was,
Mhm.
but it really is important to have that communication and to keep that connection. But you can't do it if you're constantly distracted, because the world we live in right now is full of distractions.
Oh my God, especially with the cell phones.
Yeah.
Oy, oy,
Oh,
oy.
absolutely. I mean, do you see a lot of clients come to you and sit down and immediately you kind of look at them and you're like, well, here's the first question. How much time do you actually spend together? Do you see that that's a common issue with a lot of these couples?
Yes, definitely. They've forgotten that they need to spend time with each other. I don't believe a relationship has to be super hard. You do require to put an effort out constantly.
Mhm.
It has to, because you're two different people, right?
Mhm.
And if you're not willing to put that effort out in a relationship, it's just going to fizzle away. But
Mhm.
yes, a lot of times they just don't spend time with each other anymore, and they certainly don't communicate.
Yeah, that's actually a fear of mine in my relationship. I mean, my career right now as an actor would mean that every so often I have to travel, but for like my day job, for like paying the bills and stuff, I've looked at certain things to, fill my time, to fill my income gaps. And it's always been like jobs where it would require me to work nights and weekends, basically, to be able to audition during the day and all of that good stuff. But then my fear was, okay, if I do that, I will now only be sleeping with my husband. That's it. And when I say sleeping, I'm not even talking about sexual. I'm just saying just sleeping. That's it. And then he goes to work during the day, and then I'm asleep during the day. Then he comes home at night, and then I go to work at night. And I feel like we see like these public figures sometimes where they break up. I feel like that can be a factor into it, because if you never see each other, after a while, you're like, I might as well be with my coworker, because at least I see her or him more. I never see my husband or my wife ever. So yeah, I think spending time with each other is super important.
It is. And it's really about making it a priority, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can make excuses for everything.
Hmm.
But unless we make it a priority,
Yeah.
even if it's just half an hour, right, of
Yeah.
really like quality time, that can make a big difference as
I
well.
think the key word there is quality.
Mhm.
You ever go out to restaurants and you see like two people out on the date, and the entire time
Oh
they're sitting
God,
in front of each
yes.
other like this, and you're just like, what's happening? It breaks my heart because it's so many young couples too. Like we go to Palm Springs, and it'll be like a young 20-something-year-old couple. And I think maybe for the entire hour that they're sitting there, I maybe have heard two things.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's because they're not in a conscious relationship, right? If you're gonna be like a robot, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen it even with friends. Sometimes we've gone out to dinner, we sit down at the table, and I'll notice they both sit down. First thing they do is they put their cell phone on the table. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, you came with a purse, like, and you have a pocket. You know, like I love the idea of having this, for lack of a better word, rule around like no cell phones on the table. It sounds like something my mother would have said had we had cell phones back then. But
Mhm.
you know, I love this idea of like really put your cell phone away and just engage with the person. There's going to be no emergency that needs your attention to that degree that they can't call the
Mhm.
restaurant. If you have kids at home with a babysitter and the babysitter knows what restaurant you're at, they can call the restaurant. The restaurant still has landline phones,
Mhm.
and then
Yes.
they can find you, or you'll feel it going off eventually.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't have to turn it off, but like just put it out of sight so you're not constantly checking it. Stop while you're sitting with each other.
Yeah.
Stop like checking your social media. It's just, I know I
Stop
see it too.
posting pictures of, oh my God, if my husband listens to this episode, he's going to be so upset at me. But stop posting pictures of your food before you even start to eat it. Just like, I have a rule where it's like, I leave my cell phone in my pocket when we're out for dinner. Like I try not to, and if I do take it, I try to make it when we're about to pay the bill. Like, so towards the very end, but during the meal, during appetizers, during when we're getting drinks, I do not take out my phone. I try to make that my rule, but it seems like other people just don't get that. They're like, I have to show the world what I'm doing. It's like, you have to get back with being in the moment.
Yes.
Is that the key to just be in the moment?
Yeah, be in the moment. And when you're making eye contact with your partner, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's that eye contact. And then it goes back to that being heard again as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's that listening and communication going back and forth and just totally being, with them and just, I don't know, encompassed by them.
I wonder if you could maybe give some tips to our listeners who are probably more than likely going to be mostly single. And I know you work mostly with couples, but I know you got this side nailed down too. How to use your intuition on dates before you're in a marriage or a long-term relationship. Like, how important is that?
It's very important. You need to look, especially if you're out on a date, look at how they are interacting with the servers, the bartender, other people.
I
Really
love that.
important. It's
I
very
love
important.
that.
Yeah. And just notice, I've been on dates where they just talk about themselves and nothing, and then I can't get a word in edgewise. That's not a 50-50 partnership. So there's lots of things that you can really look for. When I'm going out on a date or I'm talking to a man, I like to listen. I listen to everything he says. I've learned how to read the body language, and I can read between the lines just by watching them and hearing what they're saying. So it's important, very important to look for those things, and don't settle. Don't settle for something that's not going to make you happy, because you have to think long term.
Yeah.
And you have to know what your negotiables are and what your non-negotiables are. That's really important.
Do you find that people, because I like how you said that the long term, because I know in the gay community, I don't know if it's the same for the straight community, but I know for some men, there's an emphasis put on physical beauty, something that is not guaranteed to last for 30, 40, 50 years.
Sure it is. You can pay for it now.
I mean, you can pay for it, but not everyone is, upwardly mobile, I guess, or financially secure or financially independent, yada, yada, yada. We can't help but want to be with someone that we're attracted to, that turns us on sexually. Outside of intuition, outside of matching wavelengths, how important is physical attraction? Because it does inspire so much in a healthy relationship.
Yes, it is important to have a spark. It doesn't have to be a big spark to begin with, because I've learned that sometimes the spark, you just got to be something though to start with. If it isn't, it's probably not going to work anyway. But if there's a little bit there, then as you get to know that person, that spark will grow. So it's really important to know whether there is at least something there.
Something.
And it might be 3 dates before you realize it's a yes or a no.
Yeah.
Sometimes the first date isn't, it's hard to judge on a first date because everyone's nervous and,
Right.
So you should give it, unless it's somebody that's totally like definitely a no.
Yeah.
Give it at least 3 dates before you actually make a decision, and ask yourself, am I interested in going out with this person again? And that gives you your answer.
It's funny because, it makes me think back when I first started dating, like in my early 20s, and I didn't obviously know anything about coaching and I had no idea what I was doing. And I like when I think about some of those relationships and how we were compatible, but there was no chemistry. And I was really forcing the chemistry. And it took months before I felt any type of chemistry. And these are relationships I ended up in for a year, 2 years sometimes. And they end up failing because I would meet someone and feel that chemistry. I never cheated, don't get me wrong, but I'd end up breaking up with them because I realized I'm missing something here. Oh, I don't have any chemistry with my partner. We're just really freaking compatible. But you have to have that chemistry. Do you end up with clients that come in and you look at them and you're like, uh-oh, there's no chemistry here. What do I do with you now?
Well, yeah, that can happen. And then you just kind of walk them through and help them get clarity on what it is they're wanting, and I never tell somebody, they should leave their partner or they should stay with their partner. That's they know within themselves, and I bring that out in them as to what they should do, simply by asking questions and having them do exercises that will get that clarity for them. And it's interesting too, is there's the other side of it too, is if there's too much chemistry, like if it's just like, you want to have like passionate
Just
sex
want to
right
rip their
off them.
freaking
Yeah.
clothes off.
Yeah. Then you have to be careful with that too, because if that's all it is then it's probably going to fizzle out. Right.
And we see those relationships a lot, especially in like the tabloids and the gossip columns where you see that you can tell it's only sex that they're having. And even some of our friends, we have that one friend where they meet this new guy or girl, and they're just, when you meet them together, they cannot keep their hands off of that person. It's nice to see. I'm not saying it's bad, but you're just like, is it just that? Because that's really all there is. When they don't really talk, they just touch and kiss. That's it. It's like, how far is that going to go?
Yeah.
Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation today.
I have too.
Especially the part about listening to how they treat the server. I think I'm going to do that on my date tonight. I'm going to pay attention to how he treats our server tonight. And I'm going to tell him, you know what? And coach just told me that you're out. You suck. I'm just kidding. I'm sure he's fine.
I think how they treat any kind of service person or anyone below them is indication.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I love that you were here with us today. Thank you so much, Wanda. We will be sure to share your information so that if there's anyone out there that would like some coaching, they can get in touch with you.
And to get rid of the triggers.
Honestly, not for nothing else. I think couple or no couple, like shit, work on your triggers, people. We all have them.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad that we were your first. It's like you broke your podcast virginity.
Yes.
I didn't want to say that early. I thought I was going to be kind of dirty. I was going to say something to the girls like, "Oh, we popped your cherry." And I was like, "Is that inappropriate?"
I mean, the shit that we talk about on the show, nothing is inappropriate. But to our listeners, thank you for listening to us. Don't forget to give us a like, a follow, a review on whatever podcasting stream you are using. And if you would like to see us or get access to our post shows, then you need to subscribe to patreon.com, date smarter, sexier. And until next time. So we might have forgotten to tell you about this part.
Yeah, we usually do like a little post show for our listeners.
Yeah.
Just a more casual conversation because this one doesn't go out to the public.
You have to pay to see this one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what did you think of your first? Yeah. What did you think of your first experience on a podcast?
It was good. I like the casual conversation. It's more natural. I do much better in that kind of a situation.
That's our biggest feedback that we get from listeners, is that they love that it just feels like they're eavesdropping on a conversation, which is cool.
Yeah. I feel like it's it's less tense because you ever do interviews where you can feel like they're trying to hit these points and you're just like, are you even listening to the answers that I'm giving you? Because you're not giving me any
Yeah.
feedback. You're not giving me no ums, no uh-huhs. It's, oh, wow, really? None of that. You're just like, okay, next question, blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh my God, come on. Yeah, I don't like that.
I did an interview for someone like that recently where he was just like, so what's your favorite quote? And like asking me all these really abstract things that have nothing to do with my ability to be a good coach. And I was just like, where are we going with this? And I was
Ooh,
like, I don't
quote.
know. If you want me to come up with shit like that, you need to give me the questions ahead of time. And
Yeah.
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 like just
Stuff like
stupid
that.
crap. So we are
Yeah.
not the stupid crap people.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. I love your energy.
Oh,
Well,
thank you.
and Andrew and I have talked already, and there was just like this instant like friendship. It was just felt so comfortable with her. And
Is it like a small community for all of you? Like all the coaches out there? Like, do you all kind of know each other? Kind of like how the actor world works and the
There's a
athlete world
lot of
works?
us. You'd be surprised. There are a shit ton of us out there. We met through another relationship coach and we bonded over the fact that she sucked.
Hating someone else bonds many people.
She was kind of a hypocrite. And
yeah,
we were just like, and you can see it because we were all on this, what was it? It was a 5-day challenge or
yeah,
something like that. And so you could see everyone's face going, huh?
yeah,
Because she's trying to teach a specific way of marketing your relationship coaching business. And yet she did the exact opposite of what she was trying to teach everyone. So it was just like,
Yeah, no
I
one likes
stopped
the
following her and
contradiction.
everything.
Yeah.
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 She's
I feel like that sounds like the same as reverends and pastors, where anyone can become one technically. So you kind of get the best. You get the best people, and you also get those that are just trying to take advantage of the situation.
yes. And you have to work through your own shit and be able to resolve it before you can
Mhm.
actually do it.
Yeah,
Like,
that is true. You ever heard of financial advisors that don't make any money? That's beyond me. I'm
yeah,
like, I'm like,
yeah. Let me give you all my money.
oh yeah, like, have you made any money? No, not really. This is like, okay, this is a great idea. It's like your
I just had
friends.
someone message me that exact example of like a financial advisor. And I'm like, but a coach is not a financial advisor. A coach is very different. A coach is trained. Now, if you're a mentor, then yes, you have to have the experience. And probably that's what she should have been calling herself, this other woman, was a
Yeah,
mentor,
yeah,
not a coach,
yeah.
because I actually don't think she learned anything to be a coach. I think she was
Mhm.
just basing it off of her own personal experience. She found love and went, oh my God, I can do this for everyone.
Yeah, because sports coaches don't necessarily play. It's just they know how to
Exactly.
motivate people to reach their fullest potential.
Right.
And I feel like some of these coaches or mentors, whatever you call it, they don't really do that. It's how can I extract as much money from you so
Yes.
I can reach my fullest potential. you know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
it's like some of those reverends throughout the pandemic, those very famous ones. And I'm like, why aren't they running out to help? But it's like before it was always like, give, give, give. And it all goes to him or her, whoever the case may be. And I'm just like, okay, so you have people like that, but then you also have people who are really want to help people, who are out there volunteering, who are out there every time something happens, the first one there to say, what can I do to help? And they genuinely care. And I feel like in your world, I don't know, it could be a little tricky. It's like our ex-president, that's what his university was accused of. It's falsely saying that we can train you in something that they could not do. So I digress.
A little bit.
Yeah, I digress. Yeah, I digress. Thank God this is a post show, right? Because people are like, what is he talking about?
But Wanda, do you ever find that in your coaching business? Like you have your programs, whatever you're offering, you have your high ticket program, maybe you have something that's a little bit low end. But do you ever just end up finding like a couple or a certain person where you're just like, you know what, they really need the help? Like, just give me a really awesome review and let's just do this.
Yes, I have done that. Yes. Yeah.
I think
So
that's
it-
important.
It is, yeah. It's kind of, yeah, if I'm really compassionate about the people and I know, especially if I know it can work and it just needs a little bit of tweaking, as I say. Yeah, I have done that. Yeah.
I think that means a lot. And I almost wonder if our marketing as coaches needs to be sharing that sometimes those situations do happen. Granted, we don't want everyone coming to us thinking like this is a handout, but I'm in the process right now of doing career coaching for someone who just can't afford it. Because when I first started, I just started as a life coach and I did a lot of career coaching for people. And then I kind of said, I only want to do the dating stuff. And I was doing all of these things and it was just too much. And so I'm helping her just to kind of get settled into a career path. And she couldn't afford it. And she was like, I can pay you a little, a small amount. And I said, you know what, just don't worry about it. Like, I know that we'll get you on track and that's more important. And sometimes after those sessions, I feel like good about myself. Like I made nothing, but like, that's okay because I know they're doing the work. So
yes, and that's key too, is you have to know if those people are actually going to do the work, because there's the skin in the game, right? If you're not putting money in it and you don't have skin in the game, chances are you're not going to do the work, right? But I know when someone is going to do the work, and so I give them that opportunity if it's needed. So, and sometimes there's a little bit where they, for instance, the couple that I was coaching, she's a dog trainer. And so I gave her my program and my coaching, and then I get my training, for free.
Oh, so, I love doing those.
Yeah. So that's always nice too. So it's not, so that's a little more, to me, if they can give you at least something, a little bit, then they've got a little bit of skin in the game, so to speak, right? Because they appreciate it, right? Not everyone's going to appreciate it.
Right. I love that barter system there of like, I'll give you a little coaching, you give me a little whatever your specialty is.
Yeah.
Except for in my field, when men think like, well, if we have sex and I take you on dates, will you coach me? No, I'm not going to coach you for someone else.
No.
What?
Oh, shit. You have no idea how many times I have had that problem where people like in the middle of getting to know someone, maybe we're like 5 or 6 dates in and they start asking for coaching. And I'm like, why do you want coaching? I'm not going to coach you so that you can go find a better fit for free. And then be like, oh, sorry, Andrea. Like, I just decided I'm not interested in you after all, but thanks for the free coaching.
I just say to them, like, I've had guys ask me, so does that mean you're going to coach me while we're dating? I'm like, no, because I don't want a partner that I have to coach. You should already be there.
Oh, I like that too.
Yeah.
Because that's a compliment to him then. Right. Because then you're saying, I'm here with you now on this date. So I'm saying that you're at the level that I would want you to be at.
Yes.
I know.
This is interesting listening to all of this.
Straight men suck.
Yeah, they do so far.
I mean, you both still have hope, though. I mean, you're going on a date today. And yeah, I mean, I feel like you should always still have, there has to be a guy out there for everybody. Because I see some of the oddest relationships and somehow they work. And
there is, but as a dating coach or a relationship coach, it becomes very challenging because now there's this judgment that they feel we're passing.
Would you date another coach?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like a coach dating site where like coaches meet coaches?
No, but that's a great idea.
Yeah. Maybe we should start one.
You should probably start that. It could be like public speakers, because I would imagine like politicians could have the same issue in a way where it's like they're meeting people they don't quite understand, and maybe they always feel like, or a lawyer where they always feel like someone is. I have friends that are lawyers, and when I'm talking to them, it always feels like they're interrogating me. And I noticed that the people that they dated felt the same way. And inevitably those relationships would end. So I would imagine like those energies just have to match if like you're going to date someone. That's weird that straight guys would expect free work from you too. That's strange.
You know, some of the
Sometimes.
top dating coaches that are out there today that are men are still single. So
Yeah.
there's something to this. Like we're not the only ones, and it's not
Yeah.
just a female thing. I've done a lot of research on the dating coaches that like the top ones that are still out there, and if they didn't get married before and then become a dating coach, they are still single, men and women.
And do you think that is the reason? Is that people
Are intimidated, or look at like Matthew Hussey. He is the #1 dating expert in the world and still
And
single.
hot too.
Seriously.
I wonder that about people in LA sometimes, because I see these girls who you look at them and you're like, oh my God, you're like Instagram in person or something like that. And when you dig deeper, they're single or they're a serial dater, or it's like just something. So it's beauty and success. Do you think those two things just makes it hard for people to have healthy relationships or just attract relationships? Because this guy is super successful and he's still single. What is it? Are most people afraid of beauty and success?
Maybe it's an intimidation thing in
Yeah.
some cases.
Is it, when you say intimidation, is it a mirror of something that they're lacking? Or is it?
Yeah, it could be that, like, some, like, I'm fairly confident, and some men, they're not okay with that. But I
And for
know
you to
when,
be, Mhm.
yeah, like I know that there's a man out there that's gonna love that part of me, right? And it's, yeah, so I don't know. I think everybody has their own hangups, right?
Mm.
It
Their own
takes a
triggers.
really, really, really secure man. And I think that's part of it. Even like if you look at like Matthew Hussey and the fact that, he's still single, it takes an extremely secure woman to date him because he coaches only women. And he doesn't do private
Oh,
coaching. He does big
wait,
engagements, like
only women?
thousands of people. Yeah, most male dating coaches only coach for women, and a lot of women only coach for men.
I find that
Yeah.
interesting for some weird reason. I would think it
Well,
would be the other way.
it helps them learn the opposite sex, right? Like Matt Boggs, for instance, I've taken 3 of his programs, and he really breaks it down as to how men think and why they do what they do, and how different men and women are, like really like brain-wise, the way they're wired, right? And it was very helpful. So he helps women find, their love of their life.
Mhm.
And how to be with that person when you do meet them. So
Would you, are there any coaches out there who actually teach the gender that they are? Like, are there any females that teach other females how to find love?
There are, aside from me
Like
and
just
Wanda, because
so,
Wanda does
just
couples.
no, just solely women, because it sounds like this guy you were talking about does mostly just women.
Mhm.
So I'm saying, is there like a woman out there that just, I only want to help women find
Yes.
healthy relationships?
Yes,
Okay.
there are a lot of them. In fact, I just found one on Facebook because she popped up in my feed as a sponsored ad, and I was just jealous that she had a sponsored ad. So I was like, who is this woman and how did she get an ad? And I noticed that she only coaches women.
Mm.
And so, yes, I think there is a certain point where you hit this caliber of person, right? Very successful, highly motivated women who have big careers and big ambitions, where they may actually more likely turn to another female at this point,
Mm.
where the rest of everyone, it's terrible to say this, but like the blue collared workers of the world, we'll pick somebody who's got those quick sales tricks, which is how Matthew Hussey started, to be fair. He's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, he's the number one coach, but like he started with this whole idea of like, these are some quick little tricks to get the guy. And that's how he built his business. And he even says he hates doing one-to-one coaching. And, on the flip side, this other woman that I found recently, she only does one-to-one coaching or group coaching. She doesn't do big speaking engagements the way he does them. He does like week-long workshops where he just makes bank, because I think it's like a couple $1,000s to show up and you get like a week. It's a very Tony Robbins style. Tony Robbins is a life coach, really. And he's doing these huge speaking engagements.
For sure.
I have a friend
charge
that
someone
follows
him around the world.
Yeah.
She lives in Brentwood, and she spent, oh man, I shouldn't say too much. Never mind.
Right. But yes, exactly. Like, those are the people that have huge followings. So yeah, there are women who coach other women, and I'm sure there's men who like to specialize in men. But I have noticed that when it's the ticket, the price point, once it gets over a certain amount, it's like, okay, you're going after the white collared.
Or it's not even that. I think it's just like what you were saying earlier, Wanda, when you're saying it has to be skin in the game. And if you're spending $1,600 for a training session, you are committed. But if you're spending maybe $200, you're like, if this doesn't work, whatever. But if it does work, great. So yeah, I can see that being a thing for sure.
Yeah, that's a big part of the marketing, huh?
Yeah.
That we see out there. The high ticket prices.
Yes.
Well, this has been a wonderful time chatting with you.
I know. This has been fun. I'm so glad that you came on and agreed to be with us.
I'm glad you wanted me. This has been great. It's been lots of fun.
Yes.
It's always nice for our listeners to get other perspectives. We haven't had the podcast for long. We started in May and it's now August. I forgot what month it was. So we've only been doing this for a couple of months, but we seem to have really found our groove, and it seems like the listeners that we do have currently really enjoy what we're putting out there. So we just want to keep giving them more of what they want.
Yeah, I love this episode. I love there are certain moments in it. I hope people really get something from it, because I really feel like if we just get in touch with our intuition and what works for us. And I love that we're talking about the love language and whatnot, because I think so many of us are mismatched just because of that one thing. And if they and you said within 4 of sessions that you have given couples, once they did that, the relationship totally changed. And I think the more we push that into our listeners' head and it becomes word of mouth, we will probably see a shift in not just relationships, but maybe in the whole world, because now we're starting to have a little bit more empathy. We're starting to think, how is this person looking at life? What is their perception? Should I listen more? Should I talk less? And I've said the same thing twice, but yes, I love that. That's the message that you're trying to really push with today's episode. So thank you so much for being on our show today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Yes. Well, on that note, I'll give it back over to you.
I mean, we don't really have a sign off for our Patreon users. Sometimes we just click stop.
That's true.
Because I don't know, they were watching us. So peace out, Patreon users. No, I'm just kidding.
Peace out.